Welcome to Turning Inward. Our intention today is to open your heart and nurture your spirit as you travel on the road without miles, moving inward on your epic and personal journey of self-discovery. I am Rebecca Polvey, your co-host, and I'm here with Dr. Vivian Carrasco. This is the second episode of our Winter 2015 season. We are excited to continue to share concepts from Love.Being.Human with you, and grateful that you are here with us. Today, we'll be exploring the concept of movement together.
This podcast offers you the opportunity to explore new perspectives through compelling interviews with beautiful human beings and words of wisdom and love. This show was created to guide and inspire you. If you're looking for more meaning in your day-to-day life, if you're looking to be wowed by everyday people, if you're on a journey to joy, peace of mind, freedom, or a wild new adventure, then honey, you are in the right place. Welcome to Turning Inward with Dr. Vivian.
Hello, Rebecca.
Well, hello, Vivian. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
You have such a calming voice.
Oh, thank you.
I like settled in listening to you intro. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad. That's what I'm hoping when I do my intro.
It's working.
Good. So today I have a couple questions for you. And the first one I thought would just be, what is movement? What comes to your mind when someone says the word movement to you?
I prepared for this episode.
Oh, good.
and
I did too.
I know you did. I love that you do. When I read this one, I prepared because I wanted to get it right. I don't know, it was probably a month, 2 months ago. Joshua had some time off, and for those listeners that are new to the dynamics of my personal family, Joshua is my oldest son, who is graduating from West Point in May, God willing. Had some time off, and he's like, "What do I do with myself?" And I said, "Well, you love art, create something." And it was the beginning of fall, and there were leaves in the ground, and he made this beautiful image, and we'll include it in the show notes, so that folks can look at it. But he did this beautiful thing with a leaf and I don't know, some sort of knife, and cut it out, and then in the middle of the leaf was this image of a heart, and it inspired me so deeply. I actually wrote words around it. I wrote, "The season is changing you. Let it move you inward. Let it touch your heart." And I think that's movement. That is us doing by reason, with intention, what plants and pebbles just do by instinct. And that's, they turn towards love. They grow towards love. That's our movement. Love.Being.Human, if you see the image as stacked, the bottom word would be human, the middle one would be being, and the top one, that epitome of our best self is love. And so moving towards and growing towards that love is how I saw movement. That's what I wanted to share.
That's beautiful, Vivian. Beautiful. When you told me movement was going to be a topic, I was like, oh, movement. And I was struggling with it in the beginning. And then I thought, perhaps it's not in the physical sense, the way we typically think of movement, because I was thinking of exercise right away. I couldn't get that out of my brain. And then I thought, well, think of it differently. And then I considered the spiritual aspect of it. And so I decided, just look in scripture for a reference to movement. And maybe that would kind of get me inspired to send my thoughts going. And all I did was Google movement and a Bible scripture, and Acts 17, verse 28 came up, and that was so cool. It said, "For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring." And I was like, wow, movement and being, part of Love Being Human in the same scripture. So that was really cool. And for me, I think the realization was that I was kind of an example of being stuck. And when I saw that spiritual reference towards movement, the thinking on other levels opened up for me. So then I kind of went from, movement, and how does that fit into Love Being Human, to being kind of excited about movement being our topic today.
That's cool. And I think that's exactly it. It's always exactly it.
It's okay.
It's the state of our being. I was engaged in a group earlier this week, and the statement was said, "I'm doing work I love, but I'm not doing it with love." And I think that was a really powerful personal revelation. Like, I am doing what I love, I'm just not doing it with love. And I think we can all find ourselves in that space. This comes to mind. I hope it doesn't get edited for unclean lyrics, but it made me think of poop. When my boys were young and I would change their diapers, it wasn't this horrid thing that was happening. It was, I am cleaning the poop off my baby. It was poop.
They're going to kill you, Vivian.
They're going to kill me.
They're going to kill you, Vivian.
But it's the first example that came to my mind, we know we're doing work we love. We know it. We're not just doing it, we're just not doing it with love. And Love Being Human is that inner shift where nothing on the outside has to change, but everything will be different. Everything will be different. I've experienced that personally. Nothing changed on the outside, but I became more whole when I started exploring this and this way of being and this action, this movement towards, we end our podcast with move with purpose and take inspired action.
Vivian, I think this leads right into a question I have for you. People have seen so many other approaches. Why could people feel that Love Being Human would give them what they are yearning for?
Because what are we really yearning for? I have been connecting with folks who, and this story, actually, honestly, that I went through a few years ago is this idea, this feeling honest. I don't know how else to say it. I felt guilty that I wasn't grateful for everything I had. I felt this sadness that I had what other people wanted, but I didn't know if I wanted it. And I think that's the yearning. That's that underlying thread of, how am I going to find what's going to fix me? You're not going to find it. Love Being Human is going to work because you're going to do the work to figure out your own inner intuitive wisdom. You're going to move. Love Being Human is that really short journey. Like, we start off, it's about 18 inches, and it takes you from your head all the way down to your own heart. So it is you embodying, you living, you moving your own wisdom through in your actions. Did that answer the question?
It did. It did, absolutely.
I like when you're surprised. That means I pleased you.
It was so good, Vivian. Well, I have to share it with you. When I mentioned our topic to my husband, he said, first words, I said, we're going to talk about movement. I said, what comes to your mind? Because I was a little bit stuck. And he looked at me and he said, who moved my cheese? And it's a favorite self-improvement book of his that addresses being able to recognize that something has changed, as well as being ready to move with the change. I guess we can look that up and put that in the show notes too.
Show notes!
It doesn't come to the title of it, but not who wrote it. But we'll find it. And so I guess this leads me to say perhaps movement could be considered as being related to time, which was one of our previous topics we discussed. I think of it as a transfer from past to present to future. And as a human, can we be flexible and open to movement in a different direction?
Oh.
That's what I got from what my husband said.
That's amazing. Flexible and open to a new direction. That is, that's it. I have two things that come to mind. The first one is the logo for Turning Inward is a seashell. And Jessica Kupferman, big shout out to Jessica, created that. And she did that without my direction because she saw this work as a movement, upward, a movement in another direction, that turning, that spiraling up. Because when we're moving out of our mind and we're moving into our heart, we're living a life that gives us so much more vitality, so much more flexibility. It's a life that is firmly rooted in our values. When we're not, we're struggling, we're being pulled down, we are inflexible, we're static, we're like statues, and we're more narrow. We just aren't as expansive. The other image that came to mind is, I'm looking at it right now. It's a seashell. And it's a seashell that I found on the seashore, if you can even believe that. But it was during what I call the dark years. And I had taken a trip with some lifelong girlfriends to North Carolina. And my girlfriend Carolee and I were walking down the seashore, and I was really distraught, really in a tough place, because I think for a lot of folks, the outside world, I wanted the outside world to be different. I wanted, like what I talked, something to be fixed, someone to be different, whatever. And I made this very genuine request of God. I said, if only, and I don't remember exactly, and maybe we can bring Carolee on and have her share exactly how I said it, but I said, I want a sign, some signal that I'm moving in the right direction. And at that instant, this is complete truth, I stepped on something hard. And, my face was like, what? And she looked at me like, what? Because I slowed down I reached down and I uncovered what I had stepped on. And I was amazed. She was amazed. With the sea water, I cleaned off a completely whole conch shell, bigger than my full hand.
Oh, beautiful, Vivian. Wow.
And it was and became my anchor.
That's beautiful. That's how the seashell got started.
Well, honestly, it wasn't. Jessica didn't know that story. When the seashell appeared, she didn't know that story. When the seashell appeared on my cover art, I thought, it's true. It's right. It is going in the right direction. This is what we need to do. It's scary.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's difficult. But it's so true. So that experience and this experience connect to each other. And you're right. It goes beyond time. It is, I'm going off on a tangent because I forgot how to connect it. But yes, the answer is yes. You are right, as usual.
Well, I also wondered, I got to thinking, I started thinking about movement in all kinds of different ways. And so, of course, I've considered, this is the opposite of being rigid. And when I think about being rigid, I think of it as being spiritually or mentally stationary or just stuck. And so then that caused me to ask the question, how do I recognize I'm stationary or stuck? Can I be open to listen and not be occupied with my thoughts and therefore not allowing anything else to enter my thinking process? Or can I step outside of my comfort zone or dare to do something outside of the box thinking? And so then I thought, I think I need to think of movement as thoughts. And how can we move our thoughts in a different direction within our minds? And is that part of the Love.Being.Human process, to think about moving our thoughts around?
Yes, I'm writing this down because I don't want to forget it.
Oh,
yes. Moving our thoughts upward and moving our thoughts to become more expansive. And that's why once you've asked yourself, how do I know? That's the human part. You've actually begun to increase your awareness and to notice. And then you're determining what your being is going to be, what your practice is going to be, how you're going to begin to create space and expand from that stationary, fixed mindset into something that's more flexible. And what came to mind for me was the idea that we have of other people, especially the people closest to us, because we have so many experiences that our mind naturally gravitates back towards. But when we're not allowing that person in front of us to be who they are in that moment, then we're not giving them the opportunity to be their full selves. We aren't looking at them as they are. And I think we owe that to the people we love. We owe that to the people that are closest to us. To maybe drop and let things fall away that aren't serving us or the relationship, and to see them in their truth and in their essence and in their intention. And I have a funny story to share about that. When you've been married to someone in the double decades, inching towards the third, you kind of have most of the big stuff figured out. But with David and I had this thing where I would get triggered every time he'd say, "Where do you want to go eat?" And it was honestly, our children, when they were with us, would just roll their eyes as soon as the question, because they knew what the scenario was going to be like. They knew it wasn't going to be fun. And in my mind, I'm like, if that's the worst thing we fight about, then hey. But I got to a point, because I'm just that way, I'm stubborn, where I was like, I'm going to look at this. I want to see beyond this. I want to figure out a fix. And I found myself doing, before I knew what it was, kind of the Love.Being.Human practice, taking this situation and starting to explore it, starting to give it a longer tail, starting to see what it was that I was falling into, so that maybe I would catch it before I actually fell in. And so I figured out that when David's asking the question, "Where do you want to go eat?" he's honestly asking me, what can I give you that will give you what you want? So the question was really mine that I wasn't answering appropriately, because what I really want isn't variety in food. What I really want is an experience. And some days I want an intimate experience with, or some days I want an al fresco experience, or some days I want, to see live music. And so I began to answer the question as it was intended versus the way it was asked. And so I began to tell him, when he'd say, "Where do you want to go eat?" or "What do you want to go eat?" I would say I would like to eat, outside, because it's 70 degrees in the middle of January. And he'd say, "Great, because I know of a place where I can get Italian food, and we can do that." Because I had, Chinese for lunch. So his primary need was variety, and mine was, was experience. And that's a really practical example of how you can begin to move from a fixed, static, and stationary place. And your question was, how do I know? You know when this pattern is repeating itself and it's not serving you. And you know that that's a situation or that's an experience that you can then begin to explore, begin to deep dive into like an archaeologist and figure it out. And you'll find your own answer for your own situation, which is the beauty of Love Being Human. It's an individual practice.
Oh, thank you, Vivian. I am just so enjoying being on this learning journey of Love Being Human with you. And we also thank our audience so much for being with us here today. And if you enjoyed the conversation, we invite you to connect with us by joining our inner circle at viviancarrasco.com. And Vivian spells her last name Carrasco, viviancarrasco.com. And I want to close with one of Vivian's sayings, which is, remember, move with purpose, and take inspired action.
Thank you for joining us today here on Turning Inward with Dr. Vivian. If the show moved the needle for you, please leave an honest review in iTunes. And also make sure you cruise on over to viviancarrasco.com and join us for personal strategies and tips to help you move forward. Ciao, baby.